what you're currently listening to is a song by the name of, oh lord, you know what? I'm not even gonna try.
La plus belle pour aller danser.
The song was performed by French singer and actress Sylvie Vartan from her role in really?
Cherchez l'idole.
The film seems to be somewhat of a nostalgia piece, representing yeah culture, a counterculture movement in the early 60s inspired by the success of rock and roll in Western Europe. But 9 months later,
Cherchez l'idole
would be the starting point of a decades-long story. One of dramatic cultural change, of hardship, and even of abuse, but most importantly of unrelenting perseverance. It would mark the beginning of a cultural phenomenon, but would begin in a place no contemporary European would have ever expected. Because while
Cherchez l'idole
would find success in Europe, its greatest impact would be on the other side of the globe, in an archipelago still reeling from the devastation of war. Now, what I said earlier probably made it sound like
Cherchez l'idole
was entirely responsible for kickstarting the idol industry, but that's an exaggeration. In reality, like any other culture in history, performance and entertainment were around long before then. Japan during the Meiji era was no exception, as drastic cultural change brought one form of theater back from the underground and birthed another new one entirely. The first was kabuki theater, a much older and more traditional art that had been pushed underground by Japan's ruling class. That's a story for another time, but from what I understand, it seemed like kabuki theaters were the place where the common people could get out of hand, at least in the ruler's eyes. However, in the face of rapid modernization and westernization in the Meiji era, playwrights and actors took the chance to bring kabuki back from the underground and introduce it to Western visitors. Today, it remains both a popular form of entertainment and an iconic symbol of Japanese culture. The second performance breakthrough, created almost in response to the re-emergence of kabuki, was a musical theater troupe called the Takarazuka Revue. Its founder, Kobayashi Ichizo, saw the growing popularity of Western song and dance, and considered kabuki to be outdated and perhaps even elitist by comparison. He even decided to cast solely women in direct response to kabuki, which was performed solely by men. The result would basically become Japan's form of Broadway, and it's still going today, running shows based on Ace Attorney. All this to say, Japan was no stranger to stage performance during the quote-unquote pre-idol years. It's not like idols just appeared in a vacuum. This precedent of stage performance would remain a mainstay of Japan's culture, at least up until the Second World War saw the hyper-expansionist Japanese Empire refocus the entire country to support the war effort. Kabuki apparently formed a strong base for this, but films and stage plays were forced to put on nothing short of military propaganda. The Takarazuka Revue's theater was even requisitioned by the military in 1943, forcing all shows there to stop. This precedent would remain until, well, we all know what happens next, right? After the end of World War II, and for years afterward, Japan had more pressing concerns. Two of their largest cities had just been cratered, and their standard of living pretty much disappeared entirely. Not much room for singing and dancing. The intervention of the United States helped restart the Japanese economy, but we'll come back to that later. No, really, we will. It's important and has to do with idols. Anyway, the effects of the war would never really leave the country and its people, as it would for any country at war. But by the 60s, the song and dance from decades prior was beginning to make a comeback. Things would be a bit different this time around though, and more directly marks the beginning of idols as we know them today. I've identified 3 main starting points. The first was Johnny Kitagawa, who, if you know the name, might make your hair stand on end. The guy has all sorts of controversies surrounding him, but he is considered one of the progenitors of modern idols. Specifically, he's credited with pioneering the idol trainee system, where performers are recruited at a young age and sent through a rigorous training program before their debut. What resulted was Johnny's, the first all-male pop group, and retroactively considered the first idol group in Japan. Kitagawa and his company, Johnny and Associates, would go on to create and manage many more all-male groups in the future, eventually monopolizing the male idol industry entirely. We'll be coming back to him, by the way. The second starting point, in my opinion, is Yoshinaga Sayuri, arguably the most famous actress in Japan's history. The timing of her breakout and characters she played were pretty much the perfect formula for capturing Japan's heart at the time. Yoshinaga commonly played the straight and narrow, hardworking student types in her breakout roles, and many of her films emphasize the importance of hard work and perseverance despite all odds. To no surprise, she became a sort of symbol for a positive, forward-looking mentality as Japan recovered from being nuked twice. The result was a nationwide precedent for Japan to become infatuated with young, attractive, and specifically female performers. The third is
Cherchez l'idole.
in November of 1964, specifically Sylvie Vartan's song that you heard earlier. The song reached #1 in Japan following the film's release there and sold over 1 million copies. The popularity of the film, known in Japan as not again, bro.
アイドルを探せ
And Vartan's once again youthful, attractive look finally created the label for stars like her.
アイドル
However, accessibility was the one issue holding them back. After all, music and dance performances like from Johnny's could only happen at in-person live settings, and film stars like Yoshinaga and Vartan could only be seen in theaters, again, in person. It wouldn't take long, however, for a single piece of technology to remove that issue entirely and make way for an explosion. With the advent of television in the 70s, idols could now be broadcast directly into people's homes. They also presented a new way to recruit idols and give them publicity through televised audition programs. By this time, idols began to carve out their own niche separate from standard musicians or actors. Offering a kind of escapism from the harsh reality of the world, they presented an illusion of perfection and purity, as if nothing was wrong with anything at all. This sort of thing is maintained to this day. Idols are expected to maintain an image of purity, mostly, and aren't even allowed to date. They can't discuss controversial topics, and we all know that idols don't actually ever produce any bodily waste. They just have quick idol meetings, In my opinion, no one personifies this rapidly growing phenomenon more than a young girl named Uchima Akemi from Okinawa. Okinawa at the time was seen as a symbol of Japan's defeat in World War II, and for good reason. The last major battle in the Pacific Theater, a total Japanese loss, was the Battle of Okinawa. Following the Allied victory and after the war, the entirety of the Ryukyu Islands, this section of Japan, fell under American occupation. Okinawa in particular would remain under American control until 1972, a controversial presence whose effects would still be felt in the year of our Lord. And yet, in 1971, with Okinawa still under American occupation, Uchima Akemi would be catapulted into stardom with her hit single 17歳. The contrast of her energy and youth against her hometown, a place of immense national shame, was the perfect combination to earn her nationwide adoration, though by this point she was infinitely better known by her stage name, Minami Saori. Though she is only one example, and other solo idols such as Yamaguchi Momoe and even some idol groups such as Candies and Pink Lady were right up there with her. That being said, if you can believe it, things for idols were only going to go up from here. Remember earlier when I mentioned America helping restart the Japanese economy after the war? Well, it worked way better than anyone thought. Let's learn some economics. Cold Fusion has an incredible video on the wild ride of the post-war Japanese economy. I highly recommend that video if you want to learn more, because I'm only going to go very surface level here. I might even have some things wrong. After all, my degree was in engineering, not econ. Feel free to let me know if I missed anything important. Anyway, time for your economics lesson, or at least the first part of it. As I mentioned earlier, after World War II, the United States took it upon themselves to help restart the Japanese economy. Part of this was due to their terrible standard of living, along with the Soviet Union standing right there, but also because the US wanted a capitalist success story, which Japan very much would be. From what I understand, two main things helped get Japan's economy back on its feet. The first was artificially making the Japanese yen super cheap, at around 360 yen per US dollar. For reference, that's less than half of its value in May of 2025. What this did was not only stabilize prices, which I don't fully understand, but apparently that's what it did, but also make Japanese goods extremely cheap for Americans. Combined with Japan being pretty much tunnel visioned on exports, their manufacturing was soon going again as the United States started buying up their cheap goods. The second is a sort of cooperative system between Japanese companies called keiretsu, replacing the zaibatsu system where companies were dominated by single families, like in Tekken I guess. The keiretsu system instead had companies cooperate with each other and provide resources whenever someone fell behind. Again, combined with Japan's laser focus on exporting goods, it was only a matter of time until the economy saw an incredible rise. And boy did it. By the time the 80s came around, Japan had the third largest economy in the world behind only the United States and the Soviet Union, the two greatest powers in the world at the time. Japanese brands were becoming household names that you probably recognize. Sony, Nissan, and Toyota, to name a few. And when an economy booms, so does optimism, confidence, and extravagance. People aren't afraid to spend money and are more willing to take chances and experiment with new things. And it was in this environment that the golden age of idols began. It's the 1980s. Idols are dominating the airwaves by now. A spending-oriented population means more record sales, and television programs that feature idols in any capacity always see higher viewership and ratings. The CM idol business model was developed at this time, where idols appear in commercials and advertisements alongside their standard music career. Popular idols at the time include Nakamori Akina, one of the best-selling music artists in Japanese history, and Matsuda Seiko, a contemporary rival of Nakamori who has been dubbed the Eternal Idol due to her successful and long career. We'll actually be coming back to Matsuda Seiko. Stay tuned for her to appear later. However, one group in particular broke the formula and capitalized, unintentionally or otherwise, on the risk-seeking nature of Japan's exploding economy. Intended to close the gap between the larger-than-life idol and their everyman audiences, this group presented an ensemble of high school students with unrefined performance skills. Compared to the stars that came before them, they couldn't hold a candle to their singing and dancing abilities. And yet, the formula worked, and the group that resulted spread like wildfire. Its name was Onyanko Club. Framed like, well, a school club, Onyanko Club aimed to create appeal not through performative perfection, but deliberately through the lack of it. Audiences would be captured by their growth as they gained both age and experience, which, well, I'll let you form your own opinions on that. Regardless, Onyanko Club would set several precedents that would stick around in the industry to this day. First, running the program like a school club allowed for many more members. Previous idol group like Candies or Pink Lady only had 2 to 3 members, but Onyanko Club's school setting allowed for over 20. Nowadays, it's perfectly normal to see idol groups with double-digit member counts, but it really started here. Second, in February of 1986, Nakajima Miharu of Onyanko Club announced her graduation from high school and thus departure from the group itself to pursue her personal career path. What followed was the release of a hit single as part of her Sotsugyo, or graduation celebration. I'm sure we all know that one stuck. Today, Sotsugyo, or graduation, is the term used for an idol's departure from their group. I'm sure many of you who are watching this video know that all too well. Finally, Onyanko Club wasn't free from controversy. In fact, the biggest scandal that came about during their time is also considered one of the earliest big idol scandals. On April 1st, 1985, 6 members of Onyanko Club were caught smoking by paparazzi, and the photos were published in a tabloid. Within the month, 5 of the 6 had been dismissed from the group, with 3 of the 5 being suspended by their school and a 4th being expelled entirely. Onyanko Club even faced the threat of being fully terminated, but that clearly didn't happen because it carried on incredibly well for another 2.5 years before disbanding in 1987. Wait. 2.5 years? Yeah, that might not seem that long to you because, well, it isn't. The reasons for Onyanko Club's undoubtedly short lifespan can be discussed, ranging from idol oversaturation to difficulty managing such a large number of members. But come the 90s, it wasn't just Onyanko Club that fell out of favor with the public. Remember that economic high that I mentioned earlier? The one where Japan's economy was second only to the 2 greatest powers in the world? Yeah, about that. I hope you're excited for more economics because it's time to get back to it. Again, Cold Fusion has a great video about this, and I recommend checking it out if you want more than the broad strokes. I studied engineering, not economics, so I really hope I get this right. Let me know in the comments if I didn't. As I mentioned before, Japan's economy was growing rapidly into the 80s. By 1985, Japan was doing so well that it started causing problems for other countries, particularly the United States. Japanese cars, for example, were of such good quality and so cheap that barely anyone was buying American cars anymore. The solution was the Plaza Accord, an agreement signed by Japan, the United States, and a few other countries to partially undo the work from decades prior. Specifically, now the yen's value would be increased compared to the dollar. Other currencies were involved too, but for our purposes, we're just focusing on Japan for now. The effect of the Plaza Accord, however, was much more than anyone had expected. Eventually, the yen had nearly doubled in value. Naturally, Japan got a bit worried, and in an effort to promote activity in the economy, they made it ridiculously easy for people to borrow money. Their intention was to get people to spend more, boosting manufacturing like before, but instead the people went elsewhere. Real estate. Trust me, this has to do with idols, just bear with me here. Eventually, it became super common for Japanese people to have multiple homes, and what followed was a positive feedback loop that ended in disaster. People constantly buying land led to available land becoming more scarce. Land becoming more scarce drove the price of land up. The price of land going up tipped off investors to start, investing, driving the price of land even higher and continuing the cycle. Eventually, land prices vastly exceeded its inherent value, and there came a point where everyone woke up and realized, wait a second, no way am I going to pay this ridiculous amount of money for this stupid little thing, it's not worth it. Suddenly, everyone who bought those second and third houses saw their value drop to an appalling degree. Reselling them wouldn't do any good since now they're worth nothing compared to what they were bought at. Economic disaster struck, and to this day, Japan has still not recovered from it. Investors lost tons of money and stocks tanked. People lost their jobs jobs, and in the worst cases, their entire savings. The economic high of the 80s felt like a fantasy, and extravagant spending and risk-seeking was a thing of the past. Instead, everyone held on to whatever they had for dear life, never spending on anything that wasn't secure and safe. Believe it or not, this affected attitudes towards idols too. The idea of audiences investing their time and energy in an untrained idol's growth was quite risky. More young people strayed away from the clumsy idol image and found refuge in the talented and self-confident artist image. Thus began a period where idols all but disappeared from major public attention. Dubbed? Remember Matsuda Seiko, who I mentioned earlier as the eternal idol? Well, in the mid to late 80s, she was one of the first to start this sort of counter-idol movement. That's a name I made up. In her personal life, in the span of a year, she announced a breakup, engagement with someone else, marriage, and pregnancy. However, despite living in a culture where marriage meant dropping everything to be a full-time mom and housewife, she later reappeared with no intention of stopping her music activities. It was a direct contrast to the idols of the time, whose main goal was to blow up, whose main goal was to look cute on stage and make audiences go, oh, when they did something clumsy but also kind of endearing. If anything, 80s idols fell right into the traditional, almost submissive gender roles, while Matsuda Seiko directly challenged them. In carving out her own path as a mama idol, she created a niche for confident, talent-focused individuals. Unlike her, however, those individuals chose not to adopt the idol label. A great example is Amuro Namie, whose sudden popularity earned her the moniker
Queen of Japanese Pop.
Such popularity isn't something to brush aside either. According to Entertainment Weekly, she sold more records in Japan than Lady Gaga, Katy Perry, and Kesha have in the US. Combined. Like many rising stars of the 90s, Amuro never chose to take on the idol label, and to this day is simply known as a singer and pop artist. Her musical style broke from the standard cutesy fluffy style of 80s idols too. Upping the energy and intensity, a good amount of her work was heavily influenced by Eurobeat and hip-hop, though she also demonstrated her range by experimenting with genres like jazz and even R&B. However, she's also widely credited for dramatically changing visual styles too, both of performers and society in general. She seemed to outright reject every part of the Golden Age idol's appeal in favor of, well, the exact opposite. I mean, just look at this versus this. Fun fact, such a drastic change in fashion is considered one of the starting points of the entire gal subculture, almost entirely attributed to this one person. It just goes to show how much music and entertainment was changing at the time. By the way, her Eurobeat songs are super cool. However, that isn't to say idols disappeared entirely. If anything, the number of idol groups actually increased during this time period. They just weren't the center of public attention anymore. They mostly followed the Onyanko Club formula of having an ensemble of members rather than just 2 or 3, but were featured much less on television and thus got pushed into the underground. Looking for other ways to enter the public eye, they began to diversify their portfolio and turn to the internet, magazines, photo books, and small live venues. These efforts by so-called underground idols would not go to waste, and combined with a few lightning in a bottle cases, the industry would soon be reborn and grow to heights never dreamed of before. The beginning of this comeback can likely be traced to around 1997, where idols first began carving out new niches separate from just making music and appearing on television. By this time, a couple new ones began to make their appearance. One that I partially mentioned earlier was Grab Your Idols, whose activities I'm a little afraid to show on good old YouTube. Rather than making their fame through television and record sales, they instead took to magazines and photo books to show their, assets. The other began as a marketing strategy to promote anime voice actors, presenting them as seiyu idols, or voice actor idols. Some of you might actually recognize some, or at the very least, you've probably heard their voice if you've watched at least a little bit of anime. Here are a few clips of some notable seiyu idols.
今日は時間に余裕があるので、この辺を散策してみましょう。ドルドルドルドルドルドルドルドルドルドルドルドルドルドルドルドルドルドルドルドル。にゃにゃめにゃにゃじゅうにゃにゃとのにゃらびでにゃくにゃく。
あんたの父親さ、あんたをただの強力な武器としか思ってないんじゃないか？復讐と出世のためのさ。ほら、かかってこい。
あれで落下して単行部ができたのですよ。うっかり皆殺しにして私に何の落ち度がございましょう。まだお父様の仇を取るつもり？明らかに好きな人を待ってる感じの。
どうも。
However, idols were starting to make a comeback on the more traditional side too. Such was Morning Musume, founded by singer and songwriter Tsunku in 1997. Yeah, that symbol right there, that's a part of his name, I'm serious. He likely determined that Onyanko Club's short lifespan was due to them being too amateurish and unskilled. Morning Musume instead found a middle ground between that and the more talent-oriented mentality of the idol winter period. Their members were down to earth, but could easily stand as talented performers in their own right. It's one of Japan's most popular idol groups, and I say is because, yeah, they're still going. Morning Musume today is one of Japan's greatest idol groups, taking their place as the country's second best-selling girl group as of 2012. They've even claimed more sales than K-pop giant of today, Blackpink. Now that could be because they've been around for nearly 20 more years, but don't worry about it, that's not the point. What is the point is that you may have noticed I said second best, which naturally begs the question, who's the first? Well, in 2005, producer Akimoto Yasushi came up with yet another unique idol formula. Instead of primarily television appearances and occasional concerts, his group would, in theory, develop a loyal fan following through consistent and close live interactions. Members would take part in handshake events where fans could directly meet them, and the group as a whole would be split into 3 teams of 16 to reduce workload. By rotating between the 3, near daily performances could happen out of a dedicated theater located in Otaku Central, Akihabara. Naming his group after the theater's location and the total number of members across all 3 teams, his new formula took to the stage, and let's just say that formula worked. It's pretty much a given that by this point, AKB48 has become a social phenomenon. They're the best-selling female music act in Japan's history, and in terms of singles sold, they take that #1 spot against all other Japanese artists. Their fame is enough to even earn them global recognition. They sit as the 7th best-selling girl group worldwide, behind the United States' TLC and South Korea's 2NE1, and right next to Destiny's Child. You know, the one with Beyonce in it. What was originally intended to be 3 groups of 16 has since spread throughout Asia, with sister groups in China, Taiwan, Indonesia, the Philippines, Malaysia, even Vietnam and India, though the last 2 stopped their operations due to COVID. Anyone at least somewhat familiar with Japan and its culture has likely heard the name AKB48. Oh, also there's this other thing. In the summer of 2010, Dengekiji's magazine, a Japanese magazine focused on Bishoujo games, announced their role in a large collaborative multimedia project. Alongside the anime studio Sunrise and the music label Lantis, the 3 would produce a project featuring original music and characters, voice actors to sing for them, animated music videos, and even an overarching plotline involving a group of students becoming idols to prevent their school from shutting down. Fans were heavily involved in the production too, as they were allowed to vote on hairstyles, costumes, positioning in music videos, and eventually the group's name, Muse. If you haven't realized by now, this multimedia project became the idol giant Love Live. It would expand to include multiple spin-off groups, each with their own anime run, video games, even some print media aside from the original magazine, and would spread to international popularity. I mean, if you're at least as old as I am and spent any amount of time on the internet, you're going to have some sort of reaction when I show you literal split seconds of stuff from Love Live. Here, watch. Ever heard this? How about this? Or seen this? Told you. Love Live, combined with the ridiculous popularity of both Morning Musume and AKB48, eventually thawed the idol winter period of the 90s. Idols began crawling out of the underground once more, but this time things were different. This time, there were a lot more of them, and this time, they had the internet. In 2013, this photo, I think, of Hashimoto Kanna went viral across Twitter and 2channel. Her and her group at the time, Rev from DVL, were originally meant to stick within the Fukuoka prefecture for their activities. But after that photo's release, the group gained nationwide recognition, and Hashimoto herself was propelled into stardom. The internet began giving her titles like Too Cute, Angelic, or Once in a Millennium Idol, and she would later find success as an actor. See, look, that's her, and that's her again. Hashimoto is probably the textbook best example of the internet's effect on the idol industry. Now, idols could fill all kinds of niches and diversify in all kinds of ways, and the entire world was connected in a way that allowed word to spread faster and further than ever. Thus began the idol warring period, coined to describe the sheer amount of idols popping up in Japan and even internationally. Here's as many subcategories of idols as I could find that exist at the moment. Earlier, I mentioned Seiyu idols and Graver idols. Those are definitely still a thing, and sometimes they overlap. Vandals display display their talent in playing instruments alongside song and dance, and are a sort of middle ground between a standard band and a traditional idol group. Local idols promote in areas where access to nationwide celebrities are limited, and act as a community's very own special celebrity. Rev from DVL started as the Fukuoka Prefecture's local idol group until, well, you know. Net idols specifically make the internet their home, using self-made blogs, video sharing, and streaming. Their claim to fame generally revolves around posting dance covers, which fall under a special category of their own called odotemita. I hate my accent, man.
Alt.
The idols have still remained since the 90s and have further diversified themselves into different subgenres. For example, Akibake idols lean heavily into the whole otaku thing, and I'm sure you all know who Baby Metal is. They fit the bill too. Is that Joachim from Sabaton? AV idols are a subcategory of idols that exist. I'll give you one guess as to where they display their talents. Let's move on. The term Kaigai idol just means overseas idol, and literally it refers to any idol that makes its home outside Japan. Everyone and their mother knows that the idol scene has spread internationally, and most notably to South Korea, producing some of the most well-known music acts of our time. But there's a growing amount of them in the United States, and if you live in an area like Los Angeles, you've probably seen them pop up at anime conventions and stuff. Turns out, I live in the area. Oh, and would you look at that? It's an event in downtown LA featuring a bunch of Kaigai idols. This should be interesting. Welcome to Brave Matsuri, an event in Little Tokyo promoting Kaigai idols in both the virtual and in-person scene. In preparation for this video, I decided to talk to some attendees to get some insight on how the idol industry made its way here and what it's like. Well, I intended to only talk to attendees, but a lot more happened than that. Take it away, horrible mic quality Nathan. Okay, so I'm on my way to Brave Matsuri in Little Tokyo. It's a Kaigai idol and VTuber performance event. I figured it would be a good place to gather some footage and get a closer look into the Kaigai idol scene. But you know, I decided to, because what's the harm, I guess, reach out to a couple performers and be like, hey, can I like interview and ask you some questions? Because it'd be interesting to get some info straight from the source. But you know, they would never say yes, they're busy, and the chance they say yes is like 1%. So they're probably gonna say no, and I'll just do what I came here to do anyway, which is to gather footage. Except they said yes. So, pressure's on now. Right. The first thing I did was talk to just some general attendees about how they discovered the idol industry, what brought them in, and what they liked most about it.
I gotta go with the OG Love Live.
I started with whole at English Mid back in like 2020, and then I sort of became more like a JP fan.
For me, it's V4 Mariah, and like all of the idols online, and I'm only kind of now getting more into like non-VTuber idol culture.
Yeah, for me it was Hololive, and then also like Love Live, the game.
AKB48.
Tamara Yukiri and Mimori Suzuku. So I was really into a bunch of Seiyu idols. Yo, I was on Morning Musume, Tumblr.
You've been into it for a while.
Yeah, no, it's been part of my life, and now it's part of my job in a way. So,
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I work doing social media for a penlit company called Neon Shrine, and organizing anime and idol events under VTuber fan events.
Nice, all right. I could have guessed. I feel like, you know, I could have guessed that, yeah. What's your favorite part about idol culture in general?
The music, it's very lively and it gets everyone going.
You get a lot of energy watching like your favorite always do their best and sort of grow along the way, and you can like be along for the journey and sort of be proud of them as they grow.
Oh, the community, easy.
Yeah, the community for sure, and also just like the personality and like humanity of idols, if that makes sense. Like it always feels really personal, and the connections. It's a little parasocial, but it feels really genuine and honest.
The fandom, the way the communities are tight-knit, everyone knows each other, it's very welcoming, and anybody who's new, they'll help them be introduced to any of the people and the groups.
The fact that so many people who feel like ostracized and, you know, to themselves can go to these events and feel a community together, that oneness is so special and so beautiful, and that's why I do what I love. That's why I organize these things.
Then I managed to steal some time with Team Yakai Soul, a SoCal-based otage team. Otage, for those of you who don't know, is a way for super passionate idol fans to gather and show support for their favorite performers. Such support is shown through chants and choreographed movement, but it's so elaborate and intensive that it's honestly tough to describe. You just have to be there to see it because these people are dedicated. Anyway.
All right, my gimble's going a little crazy.
Sick. I'm Jinx.
I'm Haru.
JP. We're based here in SoCal, mainly in LA. And this is actually around November of last year, so we're really new, but we're super into Wotage, Shikage, idol culture. We love meeting more people, and we want to share that with them as well. And everybody seems to have a lot of fun, which makes me really happy.
I was at that last event in Monterey Park. I forgot what it was called. It was Yeah. I saw you guys as well, and I was like, these guys are something else. They love this stuff.
Yeah, we're a bit obnoxious, but it's in the name.
Wait, what's your name?
Oh yeah, the team name is Yakai Soul. So yakai is a Japanese word that means like rowdy or loud or obnoxious. But really, it means fun.
Yeah, of course. I wouldn't use obnoxious to describe you guys. That was, I mean...
Oh, I would.
How did you guys get into idol stuff? Like, if you could pinpoint it on one person or a group or a song, what would it be?
It was kind of like, right here. Oh, right there. This freaking nerd. That is Made Mint Phantom. She's a ghost made VTuber who's like a total nerd and loves idols and everything like that.
I pretty much got into idols for like a while, like a long time ago, since like AKB48, Love Live, like everything. So from there, I just wanted to learn Wotage more.
I was around for Idol Master, and then Mint brought me back into it.
And it really helps that we had a whole bunch of friends that are also, fans of Mint and into idol culture. We have a couple friends who are actually also like, veteran idol otaku. So this is actually kind of interesting. Ashes and Scrub are friends who are those veteran idol otakus. They've told us that before COVID, it was very different. In Japan, it was much more, yakai, much more like rowdy and, a lot of that fun stuff. After COVID, and there's like kind of been a sort of, idol fan culture resurgence in the West. It's like newer here, so it's kind of how it was before in Japan. And in Japan, it's really calmed down a lot, and that's partially also like a culture gap. Because here in the U.S. we're kind of. But the funny thing is, the JP idols, they love us. They're like, whoa, everybody here is having so much fun. Being so loud and supportive. Everybody gets surprised and they're like, oh whoa, overseas fan is here. That's crazy. And everybody's really friendly. There aren't really mean people who are like idol fans. So really just let loose. This is fun. There's a lot more coordination in Japan. People here need to learn how to run in circles.
Oh, really?
We try to, organize circles that you just run in a circle, by the way.
Or the Naruto.
Kind of like Naruto song.
Okay,
Hamtaro circle as well. But people just, collapse and then it makes just a big mess where you can't move.
I will say one thing. Americans are better at moshing.
Okay. I think the Japanese people are like too polite.
I don't think Japanese. I don't know if they mosh.
I don't think
at all.
They mainly do like the rail riding. So they like grab onto the rail, they like shake it.
Oh, the railing at the front. Okay, okay.
We are Yakai Soul. We're a SoCal Wotage team, mainly based in LA. We have Twitter in all caps, Yakai Soul. We're also on Instagram at yakai_soul. And anybody's welcome to join in. We practice weekly here in downtown LA. I just like to have a lot of fun, get good at Wotage, practice, because it's really fun and it's really cool.
Finally, the actual idols. Because who better to ask about the Kaigai idol scene than, some actual Kaigai idols. This is Cherri and Rose, and together they form the pre-debut duo Oyasumimi. If you're in the LA or SoCal area and want your very own talented local idols to support, them, right here. This is your chance.
Hello, I'm Cherri. I'm in charge of Pink, and I am Oyasumi's devilish princess. Hello, I am Rose. I'm in charge of the color yellow, and I'm the electric angel of Oyasumi. Nice to meet you. Okay. So I'll start. I feel like mine is a lot shorter than yours. He's gonna start yapping. I'm a big baby metal fan, so I love metal and idols. So Cube singing metal songs just really attracted me, and I never got to dive deep into the culture until I fell in love with my current Oshi, who is Nigishi Pudding from Nani. And I was like, wow, cute girls can sing and dance on stage, and they have such a particular charm about them. I was convinced by Cherri to just keep going. She was like, go, just go for it, follow her in love. So baby metal started it all.
Alright, it all started when a long time ago, I was born basically. I was transferred in the middle of my junior year of high school, so brand new school, didn't know anybody, was really awkward and really lonely, had no friends, but I was able to discover idols through their Japanese vlogs, and just seeing their life behind the camera was just so interesting to me that I just immediately fell in love and thinking man, that looks so fun, they're basically forced to all be friends, and I just love seeing the relationships between the idols, and I think that's what really made me want to also become an idol as well. Forced friendship! cosplay. We're both cosplayers. And I think I was about 13. I went to an anime convention. You know, I had a lot of fun and I went home. And then later I got a message from a stranger on the internet saying, hey, we saw you at this convention. We need your character to complete our cosplay group. Would you like to join our cosplay group? And I was like 13 and like, oh my god, this is crazy. So I said yes.
Can I guess who the stranger is?
I would say stranger.
Yeah.
Yeah, I so sketched. It was actually a Blend-esque group, if anyone has seen the anime Blend-esque. I had a full group except, what was her name? Hidari, I think? The blue one. And I was like, wow, I only had one. And I had scouted Cherri. And I stalked the anime convention's hashtags to find her Instagram account, and that's how I DM'd her. So that was the start of our friendship. I don't know how you decided to continue with the friendship, but thank you.
Knowing what you know now, what would you tell your past self who had just committed to being an idol?
Oh, I would tell my past self to calm the F down. It's never gonna be perfect. There's no such thing. Just do it and get better rather than hold yourself back because you're aiming for something that doesn't exist. Just have fun. I mean, yeah, I would say that, you know, it's all for fun, and if you really put the passion and the hard work, just put all your energy into it, the outcome will come out to what you want it to be. As long as you're happy with it and you're happy with what you're doing, then it'll be okay. That's all that matters.
Do you guys see any differences between the culture and industry here in the States versus in Japan? If so, what are they?
Well, go ahead, name your place. Right. I really like going to Japanese chick idol shows, so I'm kind of well versed in the culture there. It's very, very quiet and polite. Mostly people don't really mix as much as they do here. Mixing is a very popular thing here. Everybody's chanting, yelling, and that's amazing and very fun. But the thing I've noticed in Japan is everybody does footy copy more, which is when you copy what the person on stage is doing. But they do it in a way that's very polite. They'll just be like, it's like the cheki culture. I feel like chekis are like a whole other ballgame out there. It's really their time to talk with their idol, and they only get this like very scarce 1 to 2 minutes. So they make that interaction very, very special, and that's why they buy so many chekis. Not that I'm forcing you to buy chekis or anything.
I mean, I will.
I also think they make them special, like the poses they come up with for the idol, and they make like series of different chekis. So it's really creative, and that's just really their way of going out and like getting to know their idol. I guess maybe I'll put it. I guess in the best way I could word it possible is really hound in on why you're doing it. Like really derive the passion from your heart and like all the like idol culture that you're obsessed with and like everything you know about it, and really just ball it up and put that out there. You don't want to like be uncultured at all, and you know like not come off a certain way and maybe make the wrong impression at all. So definitely just knowledge. Knowledge is key. I also recommend just, I mean, in general life, everybody should be kind and respectful to each other. But you should also, fan to fan, should be respectful of one another.
These are some personal ones for me and my friends, not serious at all. My Love Live fan friend wants to ask, what's your favorite ice cream flavor? I feel like that's a topical question right now. That's what she told me.
Banana. It's a rare flavor, but it's at Cold Stone called banana. 31 flavors.
Just all of them, all 31.
Class chocolate, 31 flavors.
Okay.
Is that the brand? Yes. Oh, it's special. It's different. Nobody else makes it. Oh, okay. Favorite game? I love Idol Master. I stopped playing a while back because I got logged out of my account, but I was a Nanaki, so you know that's my girl. I love bunny girls. I feel like Love Live is just the classic. Everyone starts there, and it's like you didn't have a Love Live phase. Like, you're missing out. Like, start it right now.
Yeah.
While you can. Try to enjoy it while you can. I think for game, I think I'm gonna have to copy and say Idol Master. But I think Ramen and Saga's banger.
That's my favorite.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Good taste.
Yeah.
They have great music.
One for each of you. For Cherri, how have your Blue Archive rolls been?
I got Swimsuit Lena.
Oh, you did?
Oh.
Oh! my friends want to ask, do you play Project Sekai?
I did. I actually had a JP account, which I also got locked out of, but I'm gonna try and get it back.
Okay.
I had saw the recent Miku movie and it, touched my heart, and I was like, I gotta play it. But I had every single raid card in the game on JP, so I'm a little behind, but I'm gonna get there. So.
This is my personal question. Have you guys seen Star Wars? What are your opinions on Star Wars?
I'll be honest, I've never seen a single thing, but I can appreciate Star Wars Land at Disneyland. It is the most incredible thing that you don't know about Star Wars. I'm just in awe. It's just so detailed.
So what did I get from all of that? I learned that in general, Western Idol fans tend to be a bit more overall, though not necessarily in a negative way. If anything, it's in a positive way. I learned that idols are loved for their energy and enthusiasm and provide a way for people to interact and make friends through shared interests. It's a community that started over the past decade or so only, and I think they would all love to see it explode like it has in Japan. Fans have come from everywhere, from Vocaloids to VTubers to the OG classics to the alternative stuff, but I think the biggest thing I learned from this is not an answer I got through any specific question I asked. From interviewing Oyasumimi, I was reminded that behind the larger-than-life persona, all the idols out there are, well, people. I mean, of course they are. It's not like they're T-1000 Terminators or something. Can you imagine if your favorite idol was actually a T-1000? That would be so crazy. Behind the stage personas are people who are just like the rest of us. People who want friends, crave connection, and do things just because they're fun. I was honestly unbelievably nervous going into that interview. I lost hours of sleep and was vibrating at like resonance frequency just before it all happened, but as soon as everything got started, it just felt like they were happy to talk, which, thank God. I know it all sounds like rambling, but trust me, I'm going to make a point about it all at the end. For now, those of you who recognize the thumbnail probably know that I missed an idol subgenre, virtual idols. Instead of presenting their real appearance, virtual idols play a sort of character and use an avatar to present themselves to the public. These are actually how I personally discovered the idol industry, and they're the inspiration for the series that I hope this video grows into. For me personally, the virtual part adds a bit more escapism to the whole thing by allowing for more exaggerated personalities. It seems to work for a lot of other people too, because clearly, the idol warring period shows no sign of slowing down. If anything, it's only growing more intense, something that I can personally attest to living near a rapidly growing Kaigai idol scene. As someone who only discovered the scene recently, its positivity is absolutely infectious. I don't think I've ever become so dedicated a fan of something so fast since accidentally stumbling on virtual idols years ago. But unfortunately, this story can't end on that high of a note. The truth is, while the idol industry was undoubtedly built on the pure-hearted hopes and dreams of equally pure-hearted visionaries, it was likely also built just as much at their expense. It's time for a bit of cold water to round off our journey of escapism, because the idol industry's record is hardly a spotless one. So far, this video has been pretty much facts only, I hope, but I hope you'll also allow me to be a bit opinionated in this section. I feel I have to at least mention some of the industry's blemishes because they bring up some pretty major issues that I think deserve attention. For example, while looking a bit into the junior idol industry, it brought to light some areas where Japan's law is, let's just say, frighteningly behind compared to other countries in protecting their young performers. Look that stuff up for yourself, and at your own risk, I'll just say it's some pretty unsavory stuff. Anyway, the other major points I've organized in order of increasing intensity. Don't worry, I'll give ample warning when things get too real. First, you may have noticed that I barely mentioned male idols in this video. In fact, the last time I said anything about them at all was when I mentioned Johnny's all the way back in the 1960s. That's because the male idol industry has been basically monopolized by Johnny Kitagawa and his talent agency Johnny & Associates until fairly recently. His influence on Japanese media was so powerful that he was basically able to pressure other male idols out of existence if they weren't managed by him, simply by forcing the media not to cover them. It also allowed him and his idols to barely get any negative press or be involved in any scandals at all, which enabled him to, let's just say, get away with a lot. What you're watching now is a fairly well-known incident in the idol scene from early 2013. It's an apology video from Minagishi Minami, formerly of AKB48, and no, that is not her normal hairstyle. It's a dramatic display of repentance. Following this video, Minagishi would be demoted to trainee status, basically an intern, and wouldn't return as a full member until nearly 7 months later. So what was the scandal? It had to have been absolutely devastating, and for idols it absolutely is. For many of them, it's one of the worst crimes imaginable. Having a boyfriend. The idol dating ban is a hotly debated topic, largely because it actually has an argument for both sides. Those in favor of the ban consider dating a distraction. Japan's baseball players undergo a similar ban before important tournaments for the same reason, which seems logically sound. Imagine if Shohei Ohtani went on parental leave in the middle of the World Series. I'd throw a fit for sure. Those against the ban, however, say that its true purpose is different. Instead of removing variables to their performers' careers, they say the ban is actually meant to maintain loyalty through pseudo-romantic relationships with their audience. In his article in the Japan Times, commenting on Minagishi's apology video, Ian Martin summarizes this argument best. What is happening here is that the protection of fans' fragile fantasies automatically trumps the basic human right to a life outside that fantasy framework. In essence, idols throw away their shot at love and companionship, undoubtedly important parts of life, in the service of their parasocial fans. Blame it on such a fantasy, lack of mental health support, or just the individuals themselves, but this means idol fans don't have a spotless record either. Some of the most horrifying incidents in the industry's history have been perpetrated not by idols or staff, but by fans. I'm about to discuss a couple physically violent incidents in the idol industry. If you don't want to hear it, no worries, skip to the next chapter or to this timestamp. If you're still here, I'm assuming you're ready. Let's begin. On May 25th, 2014, Iriyama Anna and Kawae Rina of AKB48 were attacked with a modified handsaw by a, to put it lightly, disgruntled Umeta Satoru. Frustrated at having recently lost his job while others, like idols, were so well paid, at least according to him, he opted to attack an AKB48 handshake event due to its proximity and visibility. Iriyama and Kawae received bone fractures and major cuts to their hands, with Iriyama also suffering cuts to her head. Security measures were thankfully tightened, with metal detectors and bag checks being implemented, but some injuries just couldn't be remedied. In March of the following year, Kawae Rina announced a graduation from AKB48, citing a psychological inability to attend the group's trademark handshake events. On May 21st, 2016, actress and singer Tomita Mayu was attacked and repeatedly stabbed by Iwazaki Tomohiro after gifts he had sent her were returned to him. Iwazaki had previously expressed a concerning obsession with her on social media, but after his gifts were returned, he sent multiple death threats to her and was eventually blocked. After calling for fear of her safety, however, the police near her home dismissed the case, believing social media threats did not present immediate danger. Less than 2 weeks later, she was confronted by Iwazaki at a concert venue where she was set to perform. After not receiving a clear explanation as to why his gifts were returned, Iwazaki lost control and allegedly stabbed her 61 times with a pocket knife in the chest and neck area. The police, meanwhile, when she called before the attack, had sent officers to her home instead of tracing her phone's location. Tomita Mayu would survive, and the incident prompted Japan to tighten its anti-stalking laws and include online threats. And afterward, the police issued a formal apology for their inaction. Tomita Mayu, however, would develop severe PTSD, refused to show her face in public, and has not returned to her career since. Now, I can hear some people concluding that this means idols are manipulative, capitalizing on lonely men in the audience to squeeze money from them while they're left to be victims of a one-sided relationship. Here's where the majority of my opinions come in. I just straight up don't think that's true. If anything, to me this discussion on parasociality reveals a problem with the industry, not the performers, which leads nicely into my next blemish on the industry's record, and arguably the largest. The idol industry has an infamous reputation for its incredibly rigorous, intense, and sometimes even predatory work schedules. For example, Kawae Rina, who I previously mentioned as a victim of the handsaw attack, went on record with Model Press, a Japanese entertainment and fashion news site. There, she compared her acting career with her previous one as an idol, in particular the difference in scheduling. In my current work, I pretty much know what projects I'll be in next, and what my schedule will be. But when I was in AKB48, I would find out my schedule the night before. Goto Maki, formerly of Morning Musume, described the events behind her graduation in an interview with Oricon Music Store. Her situation was strikingly similar. It was really sudden. I was suddenly told, "You're graduating," and my schedule after that had already been decided. Of course, I didn't know what to say, but it can't be helped since it was told to me by a superior, and the most important thing to me is my fans. So I tried to avoid doing anything that I thought would upset them. Already, these cases of short-notice scheduling and unconditional obedience should be raising a few red flags, but it gets worse. Here's where my second warning comes in. In a few moments, I'll be discussing the self-termination of an idol who left this planet way too soon. If such a subject is too much for you to handle, which is entirely understandable, the next chapter should be placed after I finish discussing it. If it isn't, skip to here. By this point, I'm assuming you're ready, so here we go. This is Omoto Honoka, a former member of the idol group Enoha Girls from the Ehime Prefecture. Located in western Japan, the group was created to promote the prefecture's agricultural industry. However, on March 21st, 2018, instead of attending a scheduled event as its newly promoted leader, Omoto Honoka was found hanging. She was 16 years old. Her family pretty much immediately went to seek damages from her talent agency, H Project. And when you look at their claims, it's pretty clear why. According to them, after joining the group in 2015, Omoto found balancing school, life, and idol work increasingly difficult. Eventually, she was forced to work 10-hour days at the expense of school. Sometimes she would start ridiculously early in the morning, and sometimes she would work ridiculously long into the night. When she brought up her desire to leave, however, things only got worse. Staff allegedly began harassing her and abusing their power. They rescinded an offer of money they would have lent her to transfer into a normal high school, and even threatened her with a 100 million yen penalty fee if she moved forward with her departure. Her family even claimed threats of physical violence, citing a smartphone message saying, "Seriously, I will hit you if you mention such nonsense again." According to an article from the Mainichi, an English-language website operated by a major Japanese newspaper, this situation harkens to numerous others. Girls' horror stories range from being taken to a venue with no job description and being forced to wear a swimsuit, collapsing during dance lessons from hyperventilation, and working incredibly long hours with little to no pay at all. With around 10,000 idols existing in Japan, many young women are bound to companies and people who can be inexperienced at best and predatory at worst. They may convince their naive recruits that their abuse is what's best for their career, but the reality of it is plain. It's abuse. Situations like these only give me a greater appreciation for groups like Oyasumimi, who seem more like passion projects from the idols themselves. Seeing more performers like them taking charge of their own journey, rather than selling their soul to a potentially abusive management, gives me some encouragement that perhaps the power imbalance can be shifted. Most of this video has been a neutral retelling of history, at least until the parts where the industry toes and crosses the line of basic human decency. But if I can end this video with one final opinion, it would be this. Idols have been through hell. The industry itself emerged from a war-torn country and survived one of the greatest economic tragedies in the world, but today thrives as a social phenomenon with an incredibly dedicated fanbase. Idols nowadays appear in nearly 70% of ads and commercials in Japan, and tens of thousands of young performers consider themselves an idol. They've made their way into anime, video games, and movies, and have crossed oceans to make their mark internationally. The idol industry is said to rake in nearly $1 billion a year, but more important than that are the ones for whom the industry is named. The human beings on the ground who fans like you and I know and love, the idols themselves. My dive into this rabbit hole showed me that nothing is squeaky clean. Idols across the globe have worked so hard to get to where they are now, sometimes at their own expense. On a macro-national level, they've started cultural movements and dominated the airwaves. On a micro-personal level, they've given me a group of people to follow and support, not because they represent my city or anything, but simply because I want to. Despite that though, I've discovered so much unrecognized effort and struggle. Whether they're your hardworking local idols in the training arc of their passion project, or a victim of power abuse on the other side of the globe, the idols for which the industry is named need to be recognized as more than just a cute face. So I encourage you to dive into the idol industry like I did, and find an Oshi for yourself. There are tons of idols out there, and there are all kinds waiting for you. And until your Oshi gets outed as a criminal or something, I say the best support you can give them is to be in their corner no matter what. Cheer for the larger-than-life performer while they're on stage, but encourage the vulnerable human being when they're at their low points. Recognize their efforts. Wish the best for them, no matter what, over their haters, over their company, and yeah, sometimes even over yourself. They deserve it. I figure that would be more valuable than any record sales.